Let's try and understand the sine graph. So consider something that's true in real life. In real life, you can always have a circle of radius 1. So you can always have a circle of radius 1. Now, if this angle here is, let's say, 41 degrees, and this has a radius of 1, what is the height of this triangle? Because here you've got a right angle triangle. So let's just call it W. Let's try and work out what W is. So you've got a right angle triangle. The hypotenuse is 1. The angle is 41 degrees. What is W? So you would say, oh, sine the angle, which is 41, equals W over 1. So anything divided by 1 is anything. So that's W. So basically, this height here is you sining the angle. So if I were to give you a unit circle, and ask you for the height, you simply sine the angle. So if you have a circle of radius 1, what is this height? You can just say sine the angle, sine x. So if the angle here is, I don't know, let's say 61 degrees, then this height here would be sine 61. So you always sine the angle if you want to know the height. So we don't understand or know what this graph looks like, but we're going to use the height of this dot to represent sine. So if you imagine a circle starts here at an angle of 0, it moves around like this. Here is 45, here is whatever, here is 90 degrees. Here, so the dot is moving around. So now it's at 180, and then it moves around 270, it moves around to 360. So if you want to understand this sine graph, you want to know the height of this dot as it moves around. What is the height as the dot moves around? So hang on, let's start again here. So consider a circle of radius 1. So when the dot is at a height, when the dot is at an angle of 0, what is the height of that triangle? Here you can see that the height here is getting bigger and bigger as it moves around. So if the dot is at an angle of 0, then there will be no height. So here, when the angle is 0, there will be no height. So when you plot the graph, it will be right here. And then as it moves around, when it gets to 90 degrees, what is the height of this? What is the height? The height would be 1, because our circle is of radius 1. So the highest point will be 1. So when it's at 90 degrees, the height will be 1. So it must pass through here, it must pass through here. So the dot moves around like this. When it gets to 180, what is the height? Because look, you can see that the height here is this much. As the dot moves around, you can see that the height is getting smaller and smaller. When the dot is here, if you look at the triangle, the height here is getting smaller and smaller. When it gets to 180 degrees, the height would be 0. So it must pass through here. Now it moves around. If you look at this triangle here, you can see that the height here is negative, and it's quite small. When the dot moves around here, you can see that the height is getting bigger. When the dot is here, you can see that the height here is getting bigger and bigger as it moves around. When it gets to 270, the height here would be at -1. So here is 1, here is -1. So when it gets to 270, the height would be -1. Now it moves around. Let's say it's currently here. So you can see that the height here would be this much. As it moves around, the height is getting smaller and smaller. You can see, and when it gets to 360, there will be no height, because the dot will be right here. So 360, there will be no height, because sine is really the height. So our graph must pass through here, 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 and here. So as it turns out, the graph will look something like this. It will look like this. And you can also extend it backwards. So let's say this is -90 negative 180. So what this negative thing, what that means is this: you've got a unit circle. You've got a unit circle. This here is, let's say, it's 21 degrees. This here would be negative 21. When you go in this direction, it will have a negative angle. So for you to understand this negative side, let's consider a circle radius 1. So now now the dot is here. When it moves around like this, it moves around like this. When it gets to negative 90 degrees, which is right here, the height would be negative 1. So this is negative 1 here, so it must pass through here. So it's moving in the negative direction. When it gets to negative 180, which would be here, the height would be 0. So it would be 0. So the graph will look something like this. If you extend it in the negative realm, so your sine graph, the next time when someone asks you to draw the sine graph, you can just do this. One cycle is 360. Well, just do this. The amplitude would be 1. This here would be negative 1. And halfway is 180. 90 would be at 1. 270 would be negative 1. So that's what the sine graph would look like. Okay?